Well, good evening, and welcome to Kopernik Observatory. My name is Drew Deskur. I'm the director here at Kopernik, and this is an esoteric talk, and I'm impressed that so many people are here. But anyway, I really am glad to see you here. Let's see, by show of hands, who's here for the first time or hasn't been here since your fourth grade field trip? All right, a fair number of people. Okay. Who here are members? All right, basically almost the other half. So I just want to point out that those people that raised their hands second have actually a valuable piece of information in that Kopernik membership is actually quite valuable. It not only gets you into here at Kopernik, but we belong to a consortium of science centers called the ASTC, Association of Science and Technology Centers. And your Kopernik membership gets you into over 380 other science centers like this. So if you like this kind of place, like the Ithaca Science Center, you would get in for free. So you could go down to the Franklin Institute down in Philly, or the Intrepid down in New York City, and even for a family, if you were to basically pay the one-day admission at the Franklin Institute or down the Intrepid, the membership would actually cost you less, and it would get you in for free, again for the entire year. So if you like this kind of place, think about possibly getting a Kopernik membership. Let me get out of Stellarium here. I'm going to bring up our website. Our website always gives sort of up-to-date information on what's going on. So tonight's program, Ham Radio 101, is what we're doing tonight. We are looking for educators. So if any of you are a science educator or know one that might be looking for some part-time work where you actually get a chance to teach and not have to worry about testing and really actually get deep into it, give it, reach out to us. We'd love to further the discussion. Also, believe it or not, this is our 50th anniversary as a observatory and informal STEM education center. And on October 5th, we are celebrating that event, that milestone, with a gala down at the DoubleTree Hotel in Binghamton. It's going to be a great time. Our keynote speaker is actually Nobel Prize-winning chemist, Dr. Stanley Whittingham from Binghamton University. But we'll have a reception with displays of some of the Kopernik's history, some of the timelines, educational information on the programs we offer here. And so we invite you to check that out. We'd love to see you down there on October 5th. And all right. And so you can get more information by actually going up to our website, going up to the 50th anniversary subpage, and you can learn about it. You can purchase the tickets, and we'll love to see you there. So, again, Kopernik is, we're in an informal STEM education center. We do a lot of outreach to schools. We have summer camps that, STEM-based summer camps. This past summer, we had nearly 200 students here over the summer. Diving deep into STEM topics, but also Friday nights is what we do. Is what I really enjoy probably the most for me, because I get to learn a lot of stuff, and it's an opportunity for us to really promote lifelong learning, and just especially for you younger kids, schooling doesn't end at 12th grade or at the end of college. It is a lifelong activity that really becomes rewarding, and like I said, I really wish I could live another 400 or 500 years, because when I was like your age, I said I used to have to walk to the TV to change the channel. Now, I can watch it streamed on my phone that has more power than all the computers it took to take us to the moon. So anyway, we always do a public program of some sort. It's not always about astronomy, and tonight's program is, in fact, a good example of that. So actually, let's dive into that. So I'm going to bring up my my presentation, and I'm going to dive in here.
Would you like any of the lights off?
Yeah, I'll just do it over here. That'll get started. Okay, here we go.
From NPR News, it's All Things Considered. I'm Michelle Norris, and it's time now for All Tech Considered. Have you ever been driving and noticed a house with what looks to be an enormous homemade antenna? Well, it's likely the handiwork of an amateur radio operator, or ham. Hams spend their free time chatting with people all over the world without the help of the internet. Sure, ham radio may seem quaint. The name itself is century-old telegraph slang. But as Matt Sepik of St. Louis Public Radio reports, amateur radio is thriving, even in the age of Web 2.0.
With millions of us posting up-to-the-minute photos to Facebook, checking Twitter, and snuggling up to our iPhones, it's easier than ever to stay in touch. So you might assume a hobby where you make your own antennas and tap out Morse code messages would be as common today as, say, rotary phones. In fact, a few years ago, several blogs put ham radio alongside 35mm film and VHS tape on a list of things slated to disappear, but they were wrong. New amateurs like Helen Schlarman are part of an upswing. With a compact two-way radio in her house, she pushes the talk button, announces her personal call sign, and looks up a friend.
W0SJS W0AKI.
Fellow amateur Steve Schmitz answers from across town.
Hi, Helen. How you doing? W0SJS.
I'm doing just fine, Steve. How are you, and how is Wilma?
Many hams hang postcards from global contacts on their walls the way hunters show off deer antlers. But Helen Schlarman's chats are mostly local. She's 89 and says the hobby is perfect for an outgoing person who's inside a lot.
It's a different community. There is no stereotypes of age. It's just talking and sharing and enjoying.
Until recently, ham radio was declining as older operators died. But then the FCC phased out the Morse code test that many saw as a stumbling block to getting a license. Maria Soma of the American Radio Relay League says that sparked a lot of interest, especially last year.
We had over 30,000 new amateurs coming into the radio service, and the trend seems to be going upward.
Soma says today nearly 700,000 Americans have ham licenses, a nearly 60% jump over a generation ago. Alan Weiner of Gartner Research, who follows tech trends, says that's really not all that surprising. While it'll never have the sex appeal of the iPhone, Weiner, over a less-than-perfect Skype connection, says ham radio has a certain nerd appeal.
If it creates its own experience is really what's key here. If it just emulates an experience that you can get online, it's not going to grow.
At a ham radio convention near St. Louis, the crowd swapping antenna parts and other equipment is mostly male and mostly over 50, but the hobby has attracted 15-year-old Jonathan Dunn. He says Facebook and texting are fun, but making friends using a $200 radio that doesn't come with monthly fees is more rewarding.
With ham radio, you can talk to new people of, all kinds of ages, race. I mean, it's just amazing what a little radio can do, because no matter where you're at, most likely, if you have the right stuff and the right power, you can talk to anyone.
Even though amateur radio is often more about the medium than the message, Jonathan's father, Steve Dunn, says all that polite chit-chat is still important, especially for a teenager.
If young people have the opportunity to communicate with a wide range of people, that instills a certain amount of confidence in their ability to carry on the lost art of small talk.
Even the most die-hard hams concede theirs will never be a mainstream hobby, and with smartphones and the internet, people are more plugged in than ever. But even so, there are those who still find great joy in communicating with 20th century technology. For NPR News, I'm Matt Sepik in St. Louis.
All right, well, that was an NPR piece a couple of years ago, but I think it really just sort of encapsulates what ham radio is really sort of all about. And no, ham radio is not dead. In fact, it's got some pretty cool people doing it. Joe Walsh from the Eagles has been a long-time ham radio operator, and a number of other famous celebrities. But you don't have to be a celebrity to be a ham. although I like to think that hams by themselves are celebrities. But anyway, let me do a little bit of history of ham radio. It sort of really began back in the 1880s when Marconi first started being able to transmit information over the air through a spark gap. But by 1909, there was actually a radio call book of 89 wireless telegraph stations, people just getting on the air and talking to each other through a wireless medium. But it was predominantly experimenters, people that were really sort of on the cutting edge. This is actually a picture of downtown Binghamton, down right near the ballpark and behind the post office in Binghamton. There were 2 towers. Right now only one remains, but these are actually a part of a test that Marconi did in Binghamton. What they did was they strung the antenna is actually between those 2 towers, and they used it to test communication to moving trains between Binghamton and Scranton, and it was successful. So again, that one tower still remains. And actually, there's a group of us that on International Marconi Day go down to that tower, hang our antennas on it, and actually communicate from there. So what do we do? Basically, we are in fact interested in trying to communicate with other people in some fashion, and you're going to see it's more than just voice. But again, how we communicate, and that's really sort of where our paths sort of divide. We aren't always all doing the same thing. So again, typically the first and easiest way to communicate would be via voice, but there are still a lot of people that do Morse code. There are people that actually exchange, will communicate via video, or they actually have computers talking to each other, that you're controlling. So now how do we do it? So we got to first set up a station of some sort. And to do that, we need a transmitter and a receiver and an antenna. So there are commercial versions of that. So like this box right here is it's an Elecraft K3 transceiver. It's about the transmitter and receiver inside, but some people don't want to go the commercial route. They would rather do their own thing. So we call it homebrew, where they actually create either they find circuits online and build it themselves, or they actually design it themselves from scratch. And of course, then you need an antenna. But an antenna can really be something as simple as just a piece of wire and a coax that takes that signal down to your station. But some people go with a little more money and time and the correct zoning laws, you can actually put up some pretty impressive antennas. Now, why do we do it? Best, it's an opportunity to meet and make new friends. And for many of us, it's really feeding our inner geek. I got my license when I was 12, and you look what happened. So, but it's also an opportunity to explore and play. And there's really many different avenues that you can pursue, as a ham radio operator. And we'll talk a bit about some of that. There's also very much a public service aspect of this, and again, later in this presentation, we'll see examples of how hams have really provided extremely important public service. In fact, actually, here's an example of it.
Communication is key right now in Puerto Rico, but without power down there, it has not been easy.
However, there is just one mode of communication that has withstood the strong winds and the flooding, and that's the ham radio. And the dependable medium is headquartered right here in Connecticut. News 8's photojournalist Kim Melick shows us how operators are helping save the island.
Monitoring for any message traffic from the Hurricane Maria affected areas. If you have traffic for the net or need assistance, please call in now.
Last Friday, I received a phone call from Red Cross. They were looking at potentially establishing up to 500 Red Cross shelters across the island. So they came to us to see if we could assist with the communications and gather up some volunteers to deploy with their teams and their shelter teams.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Bravo India Mike.
12 hours after we put out the call for volunteers in Puerto Rico, we had 350 volunteers.
Please keep this frequency clear so we can monitor for any traffic out of the Hurricane Maria affected area.
So by Monday afternoon, we had 50 volunteers identified, over to Red Cross, vetted and processed, and now they just arrived there this morning in San Juan. So this is one of the basic HF, or kind of a long-range communications kits. The kit is built around an HF transceiver, an HF radio, which makes long-distance communications possible. And there's all the cabling and connectors that make this happen for power. There's antennas in the kit, VHF radios for local communications, a small toolkit so they can do repairs in the field, and of course all the necessary manuals to figure out how this stuff works in a pinch.
Team emergency radio net Saturn calling any station in the affected area of Hurricane Maria.
Some of them are military, some of them are first responders, but every one of them says, I don't care about the personal sacrifice that I have to make. There's a greater good to do here.
So that's just really one example. I remember back when I was in high school, back in 1972, Hurricane Agnes came through upstate New York and flooded much of Elmira. And I was available, and I actually flew on a C-130 airplane from Binghamton Airport to Elmira Airport with my equipment and provided sort of health and welfare information. I had a big printout of basically everybody in Elmira, and with that information I knew whether their house was affected, if it was, what Red Cross shelter they were located in, and it provided information to people who were inquiring. So now, how do you become a ham? Well, you have to pass a test. It's not just go buy a radio and get on the air. You actually have to be licensed by the Federal Communications Commission. So it's a written exam, and within that written exam there are a couple of technical questions. There's some rules and regulations. There are safety questions. There'll be some station setup and operating questions, and talk about various communication modes. And then, as we sort of saw, some questions about emergency and public service communication. So, in order to get your license, there are actually there are three levels of licenses. One's called a technician. That's your entry level. It's 35 questions, and you have to get I think 80% right. So I think you can get something like 7 wrong and still pass the test. General class allows you more privileges on more frequencies that you can talk on. It's again also another 35 questions, but the questions are more involved and more in depth. And then finally, what you have what's called the extra class license. That's the top level ham radio license. It's 50 questions. Again, much deeper technical questions that they will answer. They'll ask you. But again, this thing gives you full operating privileges across any of the frequencies that hams can talk on. Now, it used to be that back when I got my license, I had to actually know Morse code. They have since eliminated that, so you do not need to use Morse code. However, if Morse code interests you, you absolutely can do it, and I'll show you during the demonstration part. There are still many people that use Morse code. And it's actually quite an efficient way to communicate. But this whole sort of technician, general, and extra class this level, these 3 levels, it's sort of what they call incentive licensing. The technician class license lets you get, so to get on the air, mostly talking to local hams, but then as you get into the general class or extra class license, then you get more spectrum privileges, and you can do much further communication, like we're going to show you later this evening. So those are the 3 levels, but how do you actually do it? So there are study guides, and there's a number of different ways you can do it. There are books that are out there that run through all the questions and the theory behind it. There are apps for your phone. There's websites that you can go to, and they will actually provide You can actually take practice tests, and if you get the answer wrong, it'll tell you why you were wrong, and so that you can learn from that. Talking to other hams, that's another way that people can, you can go through these books and apps, but sometimes they don't exactly answer your question the way you want to have it answered, and so talking to another ham will provide that. We've got a couple of seats here as well, so if you want to sit in the back, that's fine, although it's not church, so you can sit up front. Now, who actually does the exams? There are ham radio operators called volunteer examiners. You have to be an extra class license holder to do that, and so you can take the test locally, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. I'll do that now. We actually do once a month. We actually offer that exam session here at Kopernik. Basically, people think of ham radio as a hobby, and it certainly is. So let's go to Wikipedia and see what is the definition of a hobby. Hobby is a regular activity that's done for enjoyment, typically done at one's leisure time. Hobbies can include collecting themed items and objects, engaging in creative and artistic pursuits, playing sports, or pursuing other amusements. So, believe it or not, I think ham radio actually sort of can fit into pretty much every one of those parts of that description. So, types of hobbies. So, collecting, making, and tinkering, activity participation, outdoor recreation, gardening, liberal arts pursuits, sports and games. So that's a good description of what hobbies can cover. So where was I going? Here we go. Making and tinkering. All right. So I showed you that picture of that homebrew transmitter. Again, the people that love to create their own equipment, and they love doing that. And so ham radio is a great opportunity to do that. But you might just buy some commercial equipment, but you build your own antennas. And a simple wire antenna was very effective. And actually, a simple wire antenna is what we are going to be using when we get on the air a little bit later. Then there's always some add-on gear that you might you want to add on that provide certain functions that your transmitter doesn't currently offer. Again, you can build your own transmitters, you can build your own receivers. You can take a transmitter like this might put out 100 watts, but maybe I want to make it 1,000 watts. I want to be heard when I'm out on the air. You can build your own amplifier, and you can actually transmit upwards of over 1,500 watts legally. All right, outdoor recreation. So there are hams that do in fact go out, and this is a guy doing what they call summits on the air. And so there are, but they say golf is a long walk ruined. They might say this is a hike ruined, but if you're a ham radio operator, this is quite cool. And the fact that you can get up pretty high and talk really long distance with some pretty modest equipment is pretty neat. So again, hiking is certainly an opportunity. There are people that do boating, and actually there are boaters that actually, especially boaters that do transoceanic trips, will often have ham radio on board so that if any of their other equipment fails, that ham radio is there to provide communication. There are a lot of people that will go camping, will bring their equipment, and there's a very active activity called Parks on the Air, and it started back actually in 2017, I believe, was the 100th anniversary of the National Park System, and so there was a group of hams that decided to do what we call Parks in the Air, to go to national parks, to go to state parks, bring their equipment, and now I'll bet you tonight we will hear people that are in those parks, offering opportunity to talk to those parks, and you sort of collect them. There's sort of an award that you can get for making contact with 50 or 100 or 200 parks. gardening. I call this planting aluminum, but there's some people that are in a position to really go all out. I'm not one of them, but but there are people that really have these extraordinary antenna farms, and and they provide some extraordinary signals on the air. Liberal arts pursuits. So public speaking. I think especially if you are sort of an introvert, the thought of saying, do I get on the air and actually talking to other people, is that something I really want to do? But in actuality, in fact, I think that NPR piece talked about the dad that talked about their son that that developing the art of small talk. So learning to be able to talk to other people. It doesn't come easy, but the more, again, with anything else, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And being able to publicly speak is actually a pretty important skill to be able to have and master. Geography and travel. Again, I've been a ham for 56 years, and so whenever we're doing a Trivial Pursuit game or a crossword puzzle, it has anything to do with geography, the family comes to me and say, what's this little island in the middle of the Pacific? Oh, it begins with these letters. And, oh, that's this letter. But you do, in fact, get to learn about various countries, and I'll talk a little bit about an event that happened to me that was while I was on one of these trips in a little bit. Sports and games. So there are actually a number of people that do contests where we actually try to communicate with, like maybe on a weekend, to be able to talk to as many stations in a particular area. Maybe there's like stations in a particular state will be very active, and so they'll try to talk to as many stations in the state of Wisconsin or whatever, or try to talk to as many foreign stations as possible. So again, it's typically done on a weekend. Also, there are things called fox hunts where hams will actually take a piece of portable equipment, something like a little walkie-talkie here, and I might have a directional antenna, and so typically, like, clubs will put on one of these fox hunts where they will have a hidden transmitter somewhere out in the community, and then it'll be our job to try to find that hidden transmitter as quickly as possible. In actuality, that ends up being a useful skill to have, because sometimes there's equipment out there that sometimes will interfere with commercial ventures, like emergency. Maybe a piece of equipment went bad, not necessarily a ham piece of equipment, but somebody's equipment went bad and starts transmitting a signal on what would otherwise be, say, an ambulance frequency. And so hams can actually then take these, our equipment, and then try to track down where that signal is coming from to be able to ultimately, get the owner to turn it off and resolve that problem. And you can get awards. There are awards for talking to 100 countries. Believe it or not, there are actually, from a ham radio standpoint, there's I think about 320 different country entities that people can officially talk to. And so it's sort of like fishing. You're trying to find a different kind of species of fish. Well, you can do that sort of with ham radio with awards. Collecting. What ham radio operators do often is when they are talking back and forth, they will send a little postcard indicating that we had some kind of a communication. And this actually is a ham radio, in ham radio parlance, it's called a QSL card. QSL is sort of it's not really an acronym, but it's a short code for a confirmation. And this, let's see if I can get my mouse here. This card here is actually a QSL card from Sputnik. October 4th of 1957, Sputnik was launched from Russia. My father was a ham radio operator, and he had equipment, and he was able to actually listen to Sputnik's transmission. He sent a a card to the Russian Space Agency saying, I heard Sputnik on this frequency at this time, and the Russian Space Agency sent him this card. And I actually have that card up here. If you'd like, you can look at it a little bit later. Other QSL cards are one of these. There is ham radio on the International Space Station. And we've actually had an opportunity to have our students talk to an astronaut on the ISS. In fact, one of those students is here this evening. Jackson, you want to raise your hand? Jackson was our control operator for the last ISS camp that we had. Jackson and his mom both got their ham radio license, and this his contact with the ISS was literally his first legitimate ham radio call. So congratulations, Jackson. And actually, this is a ham radio operator from Windsor, New York. This is Doug Wheelock, Colonel Doug Wheelock. And we spoke to Doug Wheelock via ham radio. In fact, I think we'll be seeing that pretty soon here. So this is actually Doug on the ISS talking on the ham radio station that's on the ISS. So let's. NA1SS, NA1SS, Kilo 2 Zulu, Romeo Oscar. Are you ready? So this is my first ISS contact. With NA1SS, NA1SS, Kilo 2 Zulu, Romeo Oscar. Do you copy? At this point, I'm getting a little nervous because I'm calling and I'm not hearing anything from that. NA1SS, NA1SS, Kilo 2 Zulu, Romeo Oscar. Do you copy, Colonel Wheelock?
Kilo 2 Zulu Romeo Oscar, we've got you loud clear. Welcome aboard the International Space Station, November Alpha 1 Sierra Sierra.
This is Brendan. How well are plants growing on the space station? Over.
Hi, Brendan. That's a great question. The plants actually grow very well, but of course they need some ultraviolet light or some violet light to sort of supplement for the sunlight that they're missing out on.
You get a sense of what's that like. So we only had about 10 minutes from horizon to horizon to be able to talk to them. So we had to sort of do a bit of a choreography with the students and make sure that they were ready to answer the next question or ask the next question when Colonel Wheelock finished his conversation, his answer. But one of the things, again, this is where sort of the nerd appeal really sort of comes into play, is we really get a chance to sort of push the technology envelope. There are hams that actually bounce their signal off the moon and talk to other hams. We call that moon bounce. And some have actually been able to bounce it off Mars and communicate. Now, granted, you're not going to do that with this this little walkie-talkie. But the fact that that you can put a system together and accomplish these kinds of things, that's really where you start pushing the technology, and that technology ends up ultimately sometimes showing up in everyday life. There's been a lot of focus on digital communication, and a lot of that actually got started with ham radio operators. And now hams, especially when we're doing, preparing for emergency communication, when, again, cell phone, and commercial communication goes down, hams now are developing networks so that government officials can share the information that they need back and forth until the commercial services have returned. So this is actually here at Kopernik. One of the things we do at Kopernik is we've got this is actually the equipment that we use when we talk to the International Space Station. So it's besides the International Space Station being a satellite, there are actually a number of ham radio satellites that we can actually communicate through, and we can use our equipment to do that. And here we go. I think. What else do we do? Well, there is a group of ham radio operators that actually make Kopernik their home. It's the it's the Binghamton Amateur Radio Association, BARA. And Johnny Hart did, in fact, create this icon for us. So this is our logo. We were officially licensed to be able to use that. And so we meet, here on the third Wednesday of every month at 7 p.m. But at 6 p.m. That same day, we hold that licensing testing session. So if you think you're ready to take your ham radio license, you come here at 6 o'clock. We'll sit for the exam, and as Jackson and his mom found out, they were successful the first time. So it does work out well. The club is again, not only do we meet on Wednesdays, but we do other activities. There are a couple of contests that we'll engage in. We do some public service. Actually, Kopernik has a 5K road race that we do every spring, and the Ham Radio Club provides emergency communication. So we'll have hams, along the race route, so that we can make sure that if any racer has a problem, we can communicate that and then get an ambulance or medical personnel out to them. We also help out with the Vessel 20K. But also, when there have been floods in the area back in 2006 and 2011, HAMS provided communication here between the Red Cross services, because especially during an emergency, everybody's on their cell phone trying to get through. And if you're an emergency personnel and your equipment is down, that's where ham radio can really be of great service. And as I mentioned, this Parks on the Air, we actually do a number of Parks on the Air activations. We'll go out to Shenango Valley State Park and a few other places, and just go out for a day and just get on the air and talk to other people. So I wanted to move quickly because there's actually an ISS pass in about 15 minutes. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a bit of a demonstration. And so I've got some equipment right here that I'm going to turn on some lights. And let's see if we can get on the air and see what we can hear. So this is a relatively modern transmitter, transceiver. This one actually happens to have a nice display, so it's sort of emulating what I see down here up on the screen so you all can see it, but it's much easier for us to see what's going on. So I'm going to turn out the So what you're seeing up here is the frequency. This right now is 14.217 megahertz. Down below here is actually showing the spectrum, and every one of these spikes is some kind of a signal. So we're going to move on and see if I can
decide to upgrade, quote unquote. But I don't like to have equipment just sitting around collecting dust, and so I passed it on to a fellow, another ham.
So I'm going to see if I can find somebody that may be looking to try to talk to somebody. This is slow scan television. So if we had the software hooked up, we'd actually be seeing an image being painted by a ham radio operator. So basically it's taking that picture, the software is converting it to an audio sound, and that's what it sounds like. Actually, this past summer we had a high-altitude balloon camp, and we actually flew some slow-scan television equipment. So it actually took a picture all the way through the flight, even when we got up to 100,000 feet. It took a picture from up there and then sent it back to us right in the middle of the flight. But we're going to move on here. Let's see if I can find this big signal up here. Let's see what we got.
6 and 7 in the moment in Rancagua City, my QTH. Okay. Kilo. Pardon. Sorry. Nancy A, Delta X-Ray Zulu. Charlie Echo 4, Japan, Zulu Oscar. Good night, Gerald, 70T.
All right, so that's a foreign station, as you can tell. What I'm going to do is there's actually a neat website here called QRZ.com.
70T, Gerald. All the best in you and family. Good luck.
And I can put in a call sign, like I can put in K2ZRO.
Very good copy. Kilo 2, Wisconsin is correct, over.
What,
Kilo 2 whiskey is correct or no correct, Stephen, your call.
So this is the QRZ page for us. Or if you want to come up, I'm going to have one of our hams here fill in as I'm talking to people. See if we can find somebody to talk to.
Yo tengo puesto en un, ¿cómo le llaman esto? Un brazo grande.
Sí, ok, sí ya sé cuál, pero también se me va el modelo.
I don't speak Spanish, so we're moving on. Let's see what we got here. Okay, well actually, while I'm here, I was going to go down. I mentioned that hams will talk in a number of different modes, one of which is a digital mode called FT8, and that's, you're going to hear this. That's actually about 15 or 20 different conversations going on at the same time. There's software that was developed by a ham radio operator who was actually a Nobel Prize winner, a guy named Joe Taylor, and he created software that allowed computers to talk to each other within a very small audio bandwidth. And so it's got these little 15-second transmissions. You'll hear it stop in a second. Then it comes back up again for another 13, 14 seconds. And so it's specially timed, and then you just go back and forth like that. Find some Morse code down here. Now let me see if I can find a better signal. There's something down here. Oh, I just heard somebody. So what I'm doing is when I'm seeing these spikes, I'm trying to find a spike to try to listen. Here. That was WB0R RLJ, I think, RJL. My CW, my Morse code skills are a little slow, but anyway, let's go up and see if we can find somebody to talk to.
Sí, correcto, estamos aquí, móvil marítima.
Oh, that's that Spanish station.
Whiskey Bravo 9, Ito, Germany, Oscar. Thank you very much, Robert, for your call. I am very, very happy. Look, in the moment, your beautiful truck. In the moment, sit down in your truck. Fantastic. I copy very, very well, Robert. The next over your signal. In the moment, is the second contact for your station for me. The fifth contact in April 2024.
Practically every ham radio operator speaks English, so you don't have to worry about having to learn all those languages.
Victor, Call, Oscar. Charlie Echo 4, Juliet, Zulu, Oscar. QSO.
So put in CE4JZA. So that woman is down in Chile. That's him. He's talking to somebody else, so let's see if we can go up here a little bit further, find somebody to... Oh, there's that slow scan. Somebody up here.
National Event Station, today is National POWMIA Recognition Day, and the call is K4MIA. So, appreciate you being part of our event. Back to you, and again, nice 5-9.
K4MIA. Yeah. this is a special event station, I guess, celebrating service members missing in action. Let's see if we can get a chance to talk to him.
Yeah, very good. And yeah, it's not that well known, especially for non-military. So I'd like to spread the word. It's 16th year, and all the military gets say thanks, and again, the family, the less fortunate. So, was not a Marine, but Semper Fi, my friend. Talked to a lot of your great comrades, and like I said, all our great military out there. So back to you for a final. And 5-9.
So we'll call him after this last exchange. What, I'm sorry?
What mode is that you're on?
This is, okay, this is sideband. Single sideband, it's voice mode, yeah.
Okay, very good. And again, many, many thanks to your service. All our great veterans out there that I don't talk to and can hear me. Again, this is for all you guys and gals. 73. This is Kilowatt 4 Missing in Action, POWMI Recognition Day.
Kilo 4, missing in action. This is Kilowatt 2, Zulu Romeo Oscar.
Okay, got a lot of you. First, the Kilo 7. The Kilo 7. Go ahead.
Kilo 7, Quebec Hotel Foxtrot.
There you go. Kilo 7, Quebec Hotel Foxtrot. 59, sir. Go ahead.
After that, you're a 5 and 9 to the state of Idaho. Thank you for what you're doing and supporting, and you sound really good tonight.
Yeah, very good. Thanks, Brian. Yeah, that's very good. Your first here, we worked in the last couple days. So, again, run this station every year for our POWs and MIAs. So appreciate you being part of it. We'll be on through Sunday with a lot of other stations out there helping us out. So we'll say 73s for now. Quite a few people calling, and I'm going to get hopefully as many as I can for the band goes. Yeah, but we'll be on here for Sunday. Through Sunday, if anybody doesn't work us, and like I said, there's K4MIA/1 through/8. So, God bless. Thanks for the contact. K2 Zulu Romeo Oscar, I believe. K2 Zulu. Go ahead.
Thank you. This is Kilo 2, Romeo. Handle here is Drew 59 into Vestal, New York, and we are actually doing a demonstration as part of a public program. And so we've got about, I'd say 30 people in here learning about ham radio, and came across your signal and figured we'd give you a call. So for MIA, could you tell us where you're located? This is Kilo 2 Zulu Romeo Oscar.
K2 Zulu Romeo Oscar. Very good. We're real close to West Palm Beach County. A little bit out so we can have some antennas. Hello to everybody with the demo there. Yeah, we run this special event for our veterans. A lot of great hams out there with a lot of great events. I've been a ham forever, 50-something years, and have done everything from satellites to CW to this, and anyhow, it's a great hobby. Have a lot of fun, meeting a lot of great people, and good to hear you out there demonstrating ham radio. And again, anybody that would like to, it's a great hobby. So back to you for a final. This is Kilowatt 4 Missing in Action.
All right, thank you very much, K4MIA, K2ZRO. All right, well, thank you much, appreciate it. You got a great signal going up here. Thank you for activating MIA. We're actually going to be activating K2ZRO tomorrow. This is our 50th anniversary for the observatory up here. And anyway, we'll let you get back to the pileup. K4MIA, K2ZRO, 73. Good night.
Yeah, very good. It's another great hobby of mine, astronomy. So very good on observatory. You take care. God bless. This is K4.
All right, so there's some demonstration. Not to shortchange, the beginner license. There's a group of hams that have these we call repeaters in the area that we can actually, with a very small, modest station, I can get on and actually talk throughout the valley. So let me talk to one of my friends here. AB2HS, KA1M. How do you copy?
KA1M, AB2HS. Copy loud and clear, over.
All right, thanks, Ford. We just just had a QSO with K4MIA on 20 meters. The new display works great, and the station was working great, but I also wanted to show them how even a modest station can get around the valley. Maybe you can tell people where you're located.
All right, very good. Well, I'm located up near the Broome County Airport. So that's location, not a long distance path, but a good path. And I saw my son-in-law sent me a shot of your demonstration there, showing the display and the whole works. So looks good. Over.
Yeah, thanks very much. Maybe you could tell people with the repeater that you got here, what kind of coverage could I get? So even with my little 5-watt walkie-talkie, where can I talk to here in the valley? Go ahead.
Okay, using your portable, range-wise there, you probably got about a 20-mile radius of with the portable, because I used it from Owego, and other people have too. So I'll say about 20 miles there. With a base station like I'm using here, you're good for probably 40 miles of, I could be 40 miles away from you, and you and I could be talking from where you are to where I would be. Over.
All right, well, thank you much. Appreciate it. We're going to, I think, finish up my presentation here. There's an ISS pass coming up here in a few moments, so I'd like to get people outside to take a look at that before it goes away. So thanks again, Ford, and thanks always for all your help. AB2HS KA1M 73.
Okay, 73 to you, and I'll say good evening to the whole group that's up there, and hope you enjoyed his show. He does a good job. Of course, I'm a little biased. 73 is there, Drew. AB2HS, Claire.
And that was an uncompensated endorsement, just to be clear. 73 Ford. One thing I was going to tell you was that ham radio operators, it's like you're immediately family. Many years ago, I was on a trip. Actually, I was on a honeymoon in Europe. I was in Austria, and my wife and I were. It was in October, and so there's really no snow on the ground. But I wanted to go to the top of the mountain. I wanted to see the peaks of the Alps. So we got on those ski gondolas, and they took us up there. And I was walking around. It was beautiful, and I saw this building that had some antennas on it. And of course, I had to go over to it, and I looked, and it said in German something or other, Radio Amateurisch. Like, gee, that sounds promising. So I knocked on the door, and I said, somebody, because I heard somebody inside, and so the door opened, and so I said, "Sprechen Sie English?" He goes, "Yes." I said, "Is this an amateur radio station?" He says, "Oh yes, this amateur radio is our hobby." Well, it says, I'm KA1M. He literally grabbed me by my jacket, pulled me into the building. And it was their club, that was where their club operated out of. And they were doing some work, on the station that day. They probably had a half a dozen people there. But then when they found out that my wife and I were on our honeymoon, well, the wine came out, the sausage came out, and so we had a grand old time. But they didn't know me from anybody. but immediately, because I was a ham radio operator, I was just, a good friend. So it's a great opportunity to meet some new people, meet some exciting. You never know where things are going to take you. As I said, I got to fly on a C-130. I got to talk to astronauts on the ISS. It has ultimately, set me on my career to being an electrical engineer. But ultimately, I end up here. But yet, still ham radio. It was in 2 of our summer camps this summer. So again, there's an ISS pass. Art, if you want to take people out, I'll also, if you want, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Actually, that's usually what we do here, is actually answer questions. So if you want to go out and see the ISS pass, it's going to be a low pass, but if you got questions, I'll be happy to answer them. All right, Mark. Yes.
You say like you don't speak Spanish.
I don't. Right.
Is there any software that
there are. Yes. Is there software for translation? Not that I've ever seen applied in a ham radio environment. Again, most hams tend to speak in English, and again, very often the conversations may just very quickly be, here is my signal report. Here's how strong I'm hearing you. My location, maybe what equipment I'm using, and then we move on to the next contact. Yeah.
I know it seems like it's a very good community of people and it's like family, but do you ever run into people who are like online, like just kind of scrolling?
Okay. Yeah. Actually, so the question is, do you run into trolls online, if you will? Yeah. I mean, people are people, and so there are some. There's some people that will be espousing certain political attributes or this and that, and that's really not what it's supposed to be. That really is very rare. And the thing is, I just turn the dial and just go a little further up the frequency, and I just don't talk to them. But I mean, there's a wide spectrum of people. When my wife first started dating me, she learned, exactly, what kind of people, hams can be. She, however, is also licensed, and so both of my daughters are licensed. In fact, my wife has her extra class license, so I call her my extra wife. And, by that measure, I'm her extra husband. So, but it's something we do together. There's an event called 13 Colonies. It's always right around the 4th of July. And they'll have these special event stations set up in each of the original 13 colonies. And then, so the goal is to try to talk to every one of those 13 colonies. And so the past couple of years, my wife and I have done it with voice, but then I also do it on Morse code, and then I also do it with the computer, the digital communication. So that's because I do enjoy Morse code, and so I like to sort of keep that skill going. Yeah.
This is a sort of language. Is the word ham someone who's outgoing from ham radio?
Okay, so that question is the word ham come from somebody who's outgoing? I don't know that I've actually heard a definitive explanation of where ham came from. I've heard some people say that it was the initials of some of the original, like it was Henry, Aaron, and Michael or something, and they always used to talk to each other. So I've heard a number of different things, but there's been no definitive say. This for sure is how ham, got coined. I'm just trying to think another. For those people that live here in the area, Edwin Link of Singer Link was a ham radio operator. Walter Cronkite was a ham radio operator. Barry Goldwater, exactly. Okay, who all here are hams? There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Excellent. Again, you're also welcome to. I'll be up here tomorrow with for this special event station. We're gonna KGZRL actually was my dad's call sign, and when he passed away in 1984, ultimately we ended up getting this call sign assigned to Kopernik Observatory. So I love being able to use it. It reminds me of, in fact, I'll tell you, my dad worked for IBM, and back in its heyday, a lot of engineers from around the world would come here to do work at IBM, and if they were a ham, somehow they always would find my dad, and so this one weekend there was a Japanese ham that came, and he and his wife came to our house. And so they exchanged some pleasantries, and then the Japanese ham and the guy and my dad went down to the ham radio room that we had in our house, and my mom sat and looked at this woman, the wife of the Japanese ham. She spoke no English. My mom spoke no Japanese. They just looked at each other for like 4 hours. My dad was he heard about it. But again, it's that same thing that again, when if you're a ham, immediately you're good friends, and you can sit there and talk about anything. I've had an opportunity to I got involved also with some of the ham radio satellites, and I've done some printed circuit layouts for 3 different satellites that flew, which was again sort of neat to say that something I built. That I designed is actually flying in space. So again, any other questions or?
Do you do any Morse code now?
Do I do Morse code now? Yeah, I do. It tends to be more focused around like a contest where the exchange is really short and specific. I used to when my first license back when I was 12. I could only use Morse code, and so I would have to have my conversations completely in Morse code. But then when I finally got the next class license up, the general class, that's when I could finally get on voice. But I still do Morse code. I do digital modes as well.
How many words per minute?
How many words per minute? Okay. I had at one point been able to copy 30 words a minute. Let me see if I can find you. Give you a Morse code translator. Let's see here if I can do. Okay, so if I do, this is 20 words a minute. Okay, type the text here. If I spell welcome, all right, that's right. Okay, let's see if I can play that. So that's 20 words a minute. Back in my younger day, I could copy about 35 words a minute. I can't do that anymore. Actually, what I want to do is actually go back and start learning to retrain myself, but to do it via touch typing. One of the things about Morse code is the Morse code letter E is just the single dot, just a dit, but yet it's the most complex, thing to write. And so, whereas touch typing is just a single stroke, 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 no matter how long the key is. So I'm going to try to teach myself how to do touch typing on Morse code. But also a lot of times, especially when you do faster Morse code, you tend to store them in your head. as you're writing them down. So you might be 2, 3, or 4 characters behind writing it down, waiting for characters that are sort of longer in length to sort of help you catch up. But anyway, any other questions? Yeah, Mike.
Kind of hear the words when it goes through.
Yeah, ultimately, some people get to the point where they can actually sort of see it. They don't even have to write it down. They can sort of see it in their head as the Morse code's floating by.
One of the things I was going to say is you mentioned about you don't have to do Spanish.
Right.
I remember one of my first calls back in 1966 when I was brand new. I was talking to Nicaragua, and Morse code just tapping away. I'm going, she's like, no, I can't. I'm not catching up. I realize he's speaking.
He's doing Morse code in Spanish. Yes, exactly. Right. Yeah.
So it was like, okay, well, 72. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I'm happy to talk more if you got any other questions, or we can get on and see who else is on here. But otherwise, I think Saturn's going to be up pretty soon. Do we know?
I didn't see anything before, but I'll look again. I see some of the brighter stars.
Okay.
But I'll go out.
All right. Saturn will be coming up. Trying to think. Let me get my other app out here, and let's see where it's at currently. So, okay, Saturn should be coming above the tree line fairly soon.
Okay, I'll go in the 6.
All right. Anyway, thank you all for coming. Next week, our public program will be Fall Skies. It's Art Cacciola from our Kopernik Astronomical Society. We have a number of the astronomy club members that are here that will, that are out of the scopes, and they'll help you with that. And then we have the gala on the 5th, and then we have a big astronomy festival, Astrofest, on the 11th and 12th of October. So go to our website, and you'll learn more about what's going on. So thank you all for coming up, and 73.